The idea of building a society whose interpersonal relationship conflicts, or even political ones, can be solved with a card game is less odd and absurd than it may seem. It is inadequate, certainly, but few are the human interactions that don't, in some level, relate to play or make-believe. We are used to trading personalities as a sort of mechanic in a myriad of social dynamics. To deny the influence that other characters have over oneself is pointless, for we hardly act the same way at every given time. Make-believe is part of the human nature. Yu-Gi-Oh! Gives life to this absurd world where a card game allows us to summon the most various archetypes of monsters, be to solve the fate of the world or the fate of a fried egg sandwich. It's easy to forget, given that some of these figures are part of a collective unconscious in a trivial way, but monsters and creatures are reflections of the human soul. That the archetype used by Yugi is a dark magician matches perfectly with his character's cryptic and trickster nature, as it does his wit and malice. The same can be said about Kaiba's grandeur matching the imposing presence of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Maybe that's a perfect world, where the images of the soul materialize before us in the shape of a game, allowing these persona competitions inside a universe of rules that are both understandable and easy to master. Maybe there is nothing more humane than dual monsters. Dark Side of Dimensions is a fulfilled utopia. Kaiba skyrocketed the dual monsters technology to a point in which the feeling of reality in the game becomes almost sublime. At a technical level, the movie allies its animation to this fusion of real and holographic. Never has a duel been presented in such a dynamic way, where the characters' movements are exalted and exaggerated to the same level of the visual spectacle present in monster fights, merging harmoniously with laser rays, godly punches, sword slays, and many explosions. But what is actually happening in the duel, rule-wise, is borderline incomprehensible. Everything has come to a point where these monsters, reflections of oneself, have already become such a big part of the subject that controls them that no actual limit imposed by the card game seems to matter. Kaiba embraces this like no one else. Not only does his dual disc project holographic images of his cards through a straight connection to his brain, firing off memory of his monsters and projecting images of his adversaries, like the Pharaoh, but he low-key summons a buried card from the tombs of history by pulling it from the ground. The boundaries of the game were completely overcome by the subject's infinite imagination. The best line in the whole movie, masterfully delivered by Kaiba, indicates this newborn, unlimited freedom.
But your monster can't use its abilities! It's no monster. It's a god!
I believe that it is in the Pharaoh's own image that this utopia was created. Kaiba seeks to overcome the Pharaoh so he may also achieve the same spiritual connection that the latter has with his monsters. It is cheesy and at this point already a meme, but the heart of the cards is nothing less than a matter of luck, translated in a will to break the barriers of the game. When the Pharaoh awakens in the movie, all presentations seek to communicate how godlike is his presence. Bolts of light gradually shape his body as he, quietly, no word said, closures the duel against a dystopia precursor demon with one single draw. There is no game, neither make-believe for the Pharaoh. He and his monsters are one and the same, existing beyond any barrier. The Pharaoh is his own soul. No human being can reach the point of a complete absence of contradictions, but the Pharaoh can. That is why Kaiba decides to sacrifice himself in his duel with Yugi. Bringing back the Pharaoh never had a sense solely in defeating him in a duel, but to fire up a model of man that overcame his contradictions as a subject, or grossly speaking, a god. And if Kaiba's utopia has the Pharaoh's image as its core, resurrecting him is just as important as beating him in a duel.
You have your bond with him, and I have mine.
There is not much to say about the antagonist, Diva, but I believe that his role as an antithesis to the megalomaniac impulses of Kaiba to be positive for the story. Some elements, like transporting Joey to a world of memories that fade, could be better explored, but as a character that defies the human being's will to power, it fulfills its job. and his monsters incite a feeling of dread that help highlight a still existing dialectic in this utopia. In the end, the movie is everything that was always missing from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. On those, the best moments were when we could see through the duel's new aspects of each subject, and their character arcs developing along with the game. The spectacle created by a fluid and over-the-top animation with an equally great lighting direction, combining monster and human as equally expressive bodies, is something that certainly wasn't viable in the show due to the lack of money, but was thoroughly explored in this movie. Kaiba receives absolutely the biggest sum of good dramatic arcs in the movie, while Yugi and Diva are put more on the background. Us, as spectators, living in a world where cardboard cards don't come to life as sublime holograms, and having to deal with a meta that is more and more inaccessible and unbearable to follow up, certainly are closer to Kaiba than to any other character. Deep down, I'm sure that everyone's wish, everyone innocent enough to genuinely have fun with the movie, is to be able to summon a materialized form of their soul and take it to large-scale tournaments. However, we would have God as our final opponent, and someone would be crazy enough to travel to ancient Egypt and challenge him to a game where victory is impossible. Maybe it's better, albeit more boring, to live as we do, in constant contradiction with our own soul and without a god to duel with.